Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to talk to you today about evaluation. Last week, we talked about building self-trust, and this is a great next step to trusting yourself, because trusting yourself is being able to look at yourself and seeing yourself as a benevolent partner, someone who has your best interests at heart, someone who is truthful without meanness, and who criticizes constructively with the intention of growth rather than criticizing judgmentally with the intent of shame. When something goes wrong, and I want to pause here because it's when, not if. I want to focus on that word when, because things do go sideways. Plans change, accidents happen, and it is definitely when that happens. We want to prepare and focus on the best case scenario and also expect that things are going to add into our thoughts, our plans, and we're going to need to show up for that too. So when that happens, when things go a little awry, our initial gut reaction is judgment. Our inner critic will say things like, "You're doing it wrong. You don't know how. You are terrible." These statements are dangerous because they're talking about you as a person, not the actions that you took. These thoughts leave you feeling inadequate and incapable. And those are especially dangerous because those are the cornerstones of procrastination. Those are what lead to shame and avoiding your goals and putting off your life quicker than anything. But this judgment is an error in thinking. You don't ever show up thinking, "I'm here to mess it up." You can always act with the assumption that you have good intentions. You are good. You're a good person. You are right. You have correct intentions, even if you don't have correct answers all the time. You are whole. You're not broken. So when your inner critic is telling you things like, "You're terrible," the truth is you're not terrible. You did something that maybe was a mistake or didn't go well or isn't feeling amazing. That's not you being terrible. That's the action that you took not turning out the way you intended. Very different. So when you bring in evaluation instead of judgment, it gives you a different perspective. When you are changing the judgment of who you are as a person, which focuses on shame, to the evaluation of the actions that you took, you can intentionally do it different next time. You can intentionally say, "Oh, this part of it was good. And this is where it went a little awry." And then you can say, instead of throwing the whole thing out, which is, I mean, listen, I did that this week. My initial reaction to something that didn't go well was just to throw the whole thing out. And it took me hours to get to the point of saying, "Hang on, there is way more to this story." So, how do you do it? How do you evaluate? There are three great questions that you can start to ask yourself. And the order is important. So, the very first thing you're going to do, which is going to put you in a state of openness, you're going to ask yourself what went well. When you look at what went well, you see the big picture of everything didn't go wrong. And there's no way that everything went wrong, right? There's no way that you can say, "I showed up to mess it up and I messed it up from point A to point Z. It was an amazing mess up." Sometimes it feels that way, but the truth is there's more to that. So focus in on the points of what went well. Name them, be clear, state the facts of it. Not like, "Well, I think this was good." No, this happened this way and that was on plan. This happened this way and I liked the way that felt. What went well? State that clearly. And then you can go, once your mind is open to saying, I have a complete picture that not everything was bad and not everything was good, then you go to what didn't go well. And you can go to the specifics of like, okay, it seems like things started to go sideways at this point. What were the facts around that point? What were the specifics of where you were? What were the words that were said that didn't feel good? What was the feeling that you had that was hard to handle? When you look at what didn't go well in this very specific evaluation framework, then you can start to identify what you're thinking in the moment. You can start to see, okay, I started to feel a little shaky here, and then I started to question myself there, and then it went into like freak out mode, right? And then the train went off the tracks. Um, so once you've had those two things, what went well, what didn't go well, then you can do number three, which is what would I try differently? I would start out with what went well, and then you get to the shaky point. Can I change things before I get to the shaky point? Can I, when I'm in the shaky point, um, be kind to myself and say, oh, here you are being shaky doesn't mean that the train is going off the tracks. It just means you can try this time. What will I try differently? What will I do a little bit? What will I tweak a little bit? It doesn't mean you have to change who you are or throw everything that you're doing out of the window. You can tweak. You can, when you evaluate, you can decide the specific points you want to change. So, the great thing about evaluating is you get to put yourself in the position of looking at your actions, knowing that your intentions are good. Why judgment feels so painful is because if I'm wrong as a person, then I can never be right. If I'm deep down wrong, I can't be right. I can't do it right. There's no hope. I'm always going to mess it up. And so I'm going to go into everything that I'm doing wondering how I'm going to show up and mess it up. I don't have the confidence in myself that I can handle different scenarios. I don't have the strength to figure out where I can do it right, what I'm doing well, and what I want to do even better. But if it's my actions that are a little off, then I can always take different actions. There's always hope because I can always learn a new skill. If I'm not doing this well, oh, I can focus on learning that better. Or maybe I can try something different that uses a skill I already am really great at. So I can learn a new skill. I can't change my DNA. If I'm wrong as a person, then that's how I'm going to emit whatever I do. But if it's just my actions, I can work with that. So, why do we make this mistake? Why do we judge ourselves as humans rather than judging our actions? It comes down to patterns. Our brain loves patterns. It loves doing the same thing over and over again. So it likes to be efficient. So if I've done it before, I want to do it again, even if it doesn't feel good or doesn't get good results. If I have survived doing it before, I will likely survive doing it again. That is the way our survival brain works. So when we don't break the pattern of evaluating, when we don't break that pattern and we just let it go, like here's something that went terrible. Oh, let's just not look at it any deeper, then the brain will log that as a survival instance. That pathway equals survival. It's available to do it again. But when we evaluate, we break that pattern. We say, this part's good. This part I'm going to challenge. I'm going to challenge that I don't want to do it this way again. The familiarity can create repetition even when it doesn't feel good, if it goes unchecked. So, evaluation number one allows you to intentionally decide what to keep doing more of and what to change. It starts with the basic premise that you are good, you and your DNA are all okay, and that gets your brain out of defensive mode. So when I think I'm terrible, I'm always on the defensive of looking for how to hide myself, how to avoid messing up, and how to avoid shame. So, but that isn't a great way to live an abundant life, is it? If I'm always hiding and I'm always avoiding, then I'm not out there getting it done. I'm not out there living my best life, as we all like to say. So, when you evaluate, you shift that thinking. You use those three questions: what went well? What didn't go well? And what will I try differently? You use those three questions to interrupt the pattern, break up that judgment, that inner critic of you're doing it wrong, and say, oh, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe my actions were incorrect here, but my intentions are always going to come from a good place. So I can help you create an evaluation process specific to your goals, to specific to what you're trying to achieve, so that you're growing on the way to your goals instead of grinding through them. You can stop judging yourself in a way that makes you feel shame, and you can start evaluating yourself in a way that makes you want to work on your goals. When you're excited about what you can try differently, you can go get after it. You want to get after it because you're not worried so much about messing it up, because you can always try something a little bit different next time. So click the Calendly link in my YouTube profile, and you can schedule a free consultation to take a look at how an evaluation process can help you with your goals, and you can get into constructively moving forward instead of using shame and judgment. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next week.